Hi teachers, Brother Judd here, and I've got some help for your lesson in 3 Nephi chapter 11. Now, as you know, this is the high point of the Book of Mormon. Jesus Christ himself is going to visit his disciples on the American continent. This is an event which all of the Book of Mormon prophets have been pointing their people toward, and now here it finally is. So my help for this lesson is going to be around establishing a proper setting in which such an important lesson can be taught. Now, my recommendation is to try and do something to let your students know that this lesson is going to be a bit more reverent, this lesson is going to be a bit more important, and to possibly do some things before class to help your students come to this lesson with a slightly different attitude about seminary. So a couple of things you could do. You could message your class the day before and say, hey everyone, I want to let you know that we'll be studying a really important chapter in the Book of Mormon tomorrow, and I just want you to do whatever you can on your own to prepare, to pray, to fast. Who knows, they might take the invitation. Just do whatever you can to prepare yourself spiritually to have a significant experience tomorrow. So invitations for the students to do something on their own. Once they get to the church or your house or the Zoom room or whatever, however it is that you're teaching seminary, try to do something. Either you could do something just like, thank you for coming to, having a sign on the door, or a graphic, share your screen in Zoom, and you could just have a graphic that says something like, thank you for coming to class today. Before you come into the room, please, I just wanted to remind you that today is going to be a bit more reverent. I invite you to prepare yourselves before you come in. Once you're ready, please come and take a seat and get your scriptures out. Something. I mean, you'd be surprised how just something a little out of the ordinary flow really helps students prepare for a lesson like this. Something that I used to do when I was teaching significant lessons like this was I would put a sign on the door that would say, students, today we are going to have a silent lesson. There will be no speaking today from either me as the teacher or you as the students. Once you are ready to be completely silent, please come into the class, take your seat, and get out your scriptures. And I would stand outside the door, and the students would be like, really, we can't talk all lesson long? And I'd be like, yeah, once you're ready, please go in. But if you still have some talking in you, please do that here outside the door before you go in. Similarly, on Zoom, you could just, again, have a graphic up there, saying, I invite everyone to keep your microphones muted today. We're going to do all of our communication in the chat, so make sure that your chat is open, and that's how we're going to do class today. Now again, why? You don't want it to be gimmicky. Whatever it is that you choose to use to try to set this reverent atmosphere for your lesson, but that's exactly the point, is giving students an increased sense of today's going to be a little bit different. So when we actually get into the curriculum, I'll show you how this could possibly work, okay? So you can read the introduction there, some good reminders about valuing students and inviting students to prepare on their own. This is just half of kind of what happens in 1 Nephi chapter 11. There's another lesson that kind of covers some other things that happen. Make sure to look at both if you don't have in your pacing guide to teach both. Look at the information for those two things. And then once you actually get into the suggested learning activity, before that, devotional. How could you possibly have a devotional if nobody is saying anything? Well, my guess is you've had devotionals where nobody said anything before. That was supposed to be a joke, but unfortunately probably wasn't for some of us. But you say, all right, we're not going to sing an opening hymn today. Instead, I'm going to show a video of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and you listen to the choir sing a song. And then you say, all right, instead, and you'll be writing all of this on the board or typing it in the chat. And so you'd get up on the board and you'd write, all right, now everyone please say a prayer on your own. No one's going to say the prayer out loud. Everyone just say a prayer in your hearts. And you give the students time to do that. And then you would, just to get the students in the habit of doing this, you would type in the chat or write on the board, consider an experience from your childhood or teenage years when you greatly anticipated something. So if you wanted to involve the students, you could say, just write on the board, when did you really anticipate something? Or what's something you really looked forward to as a child? Question mark. And then just hold the marker or hold the chalk. Or if you're typing in Zoom, then just do a question mark, a question mark, a question mark, a question mark until somebody responds, and that will set the precedent for students are supposed to respond and they're supposed to interact. They're just supposed to not do so with their mouths. And then you could do that possible learning activity. You get down here and it talks about some of the prophecies and whatnot. You will, if you end up doing the silent activity idea, you will end up doing a lot of writing as the teacher. So you could write out some of these explanations and again, just write out the questions on the board and then hold out whatever you're using to communicate and invite someone to take it and they would write in their answer. And then you could hold it out to somebody else and that would be the way that you're doing things. Again, we don't want it to be a gimmick. We want it to impress upon the students that this lesson's going to be different and it's going to be more introspective. So you can go through, look at any of these ideas in the curriculum. You use the ones that are right for your class. This is where things get really good. So you invite your students and you write these instructions on the board. Read 3 Nephi, chapter 11, verses 1 through 11, looking for details about Jesus Christ's appearance to a group of people gathered at the temple in the land of Bountiful. You could also watch the video. So you know your class. If you have a class that's good at reading and analyzing, great. If they would do better with a video, then you could play the video. But then you write in the chat or on the board what stood out to you from your study of these verses. And again, invite the students to respond non-verbally. And then you just keep going. You share quotes, you ask students questions, and again, the whole point, again, is to set this atmosphere of reverence, to set a precedent that this lesson is going to be a bit different. And the cool thing that happened, at least what I've seen year after year after year after year, is, again, correct use of agency authorizes the Holy Ghost to teach. And so when students choose to be silent and choose to write in their journals and choose to write responses on the board and choose to interact in this silent way, or whatever other way you come up with to invite like an extra degree of reverence into your class, it just opens their hearts and the Holy Ghost can help them feel things. I can only imagine the experiences they've had with which of these truths do you find especially significant and why. They could write that on the board. They could write that in their journals. Whatever. So I'm not necessarily going to go through and say, here's how you could do this part without talking or go through and do that part without talking. But the idea, my help for this lesson is to think about how you can increase the reverence and the impact of such an important lesson like 3 Nephi chapter 11, verses 1 through 11. Watch the videos, read the quotes. There are a lot of other good quotes and videos down here if you choose to go the silent route. It doesn't mean that nobody can do any talking. I mean, watching videos is perfectly fine. And then just ask students afterwards to write on the board, write in the chat, write in their journals, their reactions and responses to such things. So I hope that was helpful. Again, inviting students to participate in ways that they don't expect really elevates usually the level of participation. Maybe you have a student or a class where you're like, a silent lesson? That is the worst possible idea of all time. Good, then don't use this. But I would invite you to think about what could you do to let your students know before class or when they show up to class, this lesson's going to be different. And then use that to help increase the reverence and the significance and the impact of this high point of the Book of Mormon. So I hope that was helpful. I'd be curious to hear how this lesson goes for you. You can make your comments, and you can leave a comment here on the YouTube channel. And yeah, love to hear how it goes. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll have another training for you next week. And until then,